I'm Katlego Kai Kolanyane-Kesupile, writer and director of MERITI.
I am Laura Sekwababe, and I'm playing the role of Muiti.
I'm Anna Ketlaring, and I'm playing the character Heidi.
Hi.
I'm Zanele Moyo, and I am playing the character Tezo.
I am Tefo Umpile Paya, and I am playing the part of Nkoke.
I am Lebogang Jessica Kiledemang, stage manager for MERITI.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's your responsibility to get us on so that we can do the thing. In the same way that we're potentially siding with Peto, but also we're just like, Peto, what the fuck? Hi Laura, how are you?
Hi Kat, I'm well, thanks.
Good. So the first question I'd like to get your response to is around the world of the play. What is your impression of the world of the play? How is your experience of the world of the play as it is so far that you know?
My impression, it's literally everything that you... I mean, initially when you described that it's an in-limbo space for people who are kind of moving between grief and in the afterlife, I didn't really get what that meant. But now that we're seeing it and putting it together, that space makes a bit more sense. And the experience of it, it's different for each person, for each character. And even for my character, that isn't necessarily a person, but a kind of a being. You know, my character, Mwiti, is still experiencing this space differently from everybody else. So.
The world of the play is very interesting, very intriguing, because it touches base on, well, metaphorically, it touches base on what is happening right now with the world, where we are mentally, and somehow I kind of relate and resonate with the other characters. I see a bit of myself here, a bit of that and everything. So it's been really interesting.
So the world of the play for me, as you can see, there's a lot going on with it, and it's a challenge actually, because I've dealt with absurdism before, but now this one being with the original, author, and also one that's just got Setswana, and it's speaking back to what's happening currently. So it's not like from back then, which is something we studied academically. Now it's a lived experience. I'm finding it very challenging in terms of not trying to be too direct with it, but also to allow for the magic and the absurd side of absurdism to come out, and also as an artist to still craft and find a performance in it. So playing with those words and then the depth of the words, and not trying to hang too much on the depth of the words and keep them light. So all that, there's so many challenges, there's so many things there that are constantly poking. And I'm enjoying that, because for me, I always relish the opportunity of being challenged. Constantly. I hate comfort zones. And also overall, COVID, the idea of loss, grief, it's been challenging. And personally, I've never lost this many people close to me in such a short space of time. And it's just been, how do you deal with it? And those shadows that are being cast, and then being within the piece itself. For me, there's a lot going on there, and it still forces you to be on the surface with it, as if you're not carrying this heavy thing with you. So it's really challenging, and I'm enjoying that, yeah.
And the two languages, the play happens in in the two languages of Setswana and English.
Yes.
How has that working within those two languages as a modality been for you?
I think it's a lot better for me to relate, being Motswana, and I mean I'm very comfortable with the Setswana language, so it's made it a lot easier, and it works, both of them. I feel it's very relatable.
So I definitely say the lost in translation type thing, and because it's absurd, I'll definitely say it's lost in translation. So I get lost in the translation. So there's some things I access much easier, whether it's Setswana or English, but then now when I flip to the other language to keep that consistent thread, it's jarring again, but also shows you that the situation is jarring. Nothing about it is easy or comfortable. So for me, that finding different ways of expressing things in the two different languages Because Setswana in its descriptive sense, it's not direct, and in English it's clear, it states what it states.
How are you finding that?
It should be a plus that I speak both languages, but honestly, alternating and changing kind of like, I don't know, it kind of messes me up a little bit. I kind of sometimes rush through some of the lines because, I mean, it's Setswana, I know this language very well, and at times I have a problem with my English, not being able to pronounce certain words properly, asking questions, so it's been such a struggle. I've noticed that I'm a little bit better in my Setswana because it's my comfort zone, and English, the English that I'm comfortable with is not the English that we're doing here.
It's just about making sure you get it right and you pronounce it well enough for somebody else to hear it.
So ideally it's about the communication of the language and not so much just the using of the language.
Yes, because you don't really realize how much we rely on kind of our expressions and a whole bunch of other elements. So now when you have words put in front of you and you have to deliver them in a specific way to get a specific reaction or result, that's very different because you don't realize that you're not that conscious of your tone when you speak generally because you have all these other things assisting you, all these other elements assisting you.
And also technically, the mouth, the placement within the mouth, how do you actually pronounce words and say them? It's easier to articulate English, and then Setswana is more challenging. And naturally you don't articulate that. So there's also those wonderful moments, and it's about finding that balance.
I honestly love just how we're merging two languages together. It's a new world, it's a new age. We should be able to have plays in Setswana that are written by Botswana, so we don't really see that a lot, so it's actually really interesting having to see how that kind of works. And honestly, it really flows. At some points, it feels like this is something that I would say. It just kind of flows, the lines are flowing. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
It's very relatable.
And with your character Peetso, what would your expectation or hope be for somebody who is like Peetso in this world today?
That's a difficult one.
If you had any advice for them, what would it be?
To Peetso, keep writing. Keep writing.
So what would your hope for someone like that be right now, and how is that affecting or assisting you in crafting a way to understand the character?
One, get over yourself. Like genuinely, I think the current situation is forcing people to really get over self, get over egos, get over blocks. I may be saying it this way, but I'm not saying that it's easy. But it kind of forces you to confront the true self. You can't no longer hide behind a facade or claim. You really got to engage with your own insecurities, fears. You're forced to face it. And on top of the get over yourself, let it go. Right? Just let it go in terms of the defense, the walls we put up. You got to let that go, and we see each other as human beings. And I think that'll be the last level of humility. Then I'm hoping that these characters, once they get over themselves and once they just let go of these things that COVID has shown us don't really matter, that we hold on to, the rigid way of working and being, or how society is structured, or how you're supposed to be in terms of your role and identity, which is all borrowed from a system that is completely outdated, and actually we should throw away systems and go back to just humbling ourselves that we're human beings and we can connect with you, just approach someone openly, unassuming, and then allow them to be open. And how do we connect?
For somebody who is a Khadi in this particular world right now, what would you hope for them as a person?
Honestly, I'd hope that they would open up a little bit more, kind of let that guard down, because Khadi is very much, I can do this by myself. I don't need nobody's help. I don't need nobody actually. Like, people are always going to disappoint you, but in actual life, sometimes you always need a support system. So it's okay to just let yourself be vulnerable for like a second or two. There's really nothing wrong with that, and it kind of really helps with like the whole process of you healing. it is an amazing thing that people really take for granted. And if somebody is going through that whole either grieving or going through a situation, it would really help if you can just like take a moment and talk about it.
Be for them? What would your advice be for them in weathering these times?
I think in my heart I believe MERITI is also has an element of like is a bit omnipotent, like so all-knowing. So I think in these times she wouldn't be needing much advice. Well, they wouldn't be needing much advice actually. They wouldn't be needing much advice because they understand that this is momentary. There's so much more to life. But I think MERITI would be the one giving advice to people. And the advice that she would give to people is that there actually is more to life. Just kind of figure yourself out and be sure of yourself.
And then for me, that's the thing about it, that loss, you get in touch so much with the pain that you can't lie about it or fake it anymore. And so what this means is an idea of love. And that's the big thing I see about love, is at the end of the day, it's vulnerable, it's open, but it's beautiful, and you just got to connect with people. So I hope that's what happens, that they get over themselves, they wake up, and they just humble themselves to life and really appreciating life for what it is.
And there are ways to cope with grief. There are ways to cope with what's going on right now. Find the ways that work best for you so that you can move on, because post-COVID is going to be a thing. We're not sure, you might not be sure what it looks like, but it's a thing, it's going to be a thing at least, and you need to be prepared for what's to come.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How's it going so far?
I'm finding it an interesting process in that learning, it's revisiting what it is to serving as a writer and a director is always a difficult thing. And now to be in the space, writing, having written the work, knowing what I wanted as the writer, and then having to be honest and kind enough as the director to work with the cast rather than be with the cast as the writer has been quite a challenge. But
which one are you hating more right now?
Neither. I very rarely hate the creative process. I like the working of it. It is not something that I would not want to happen, because I understand that it has to happen. And if I could, I would spend the next year just working on rehearsing the show, as opposed to trying to get to some kind of end product of it.
Have you made as much progress as you thought you were going to make in this time?
Not really, but it's not without merit. It is because, again, recognizing that we're working with a genre that requires time. And that's been the one thing that I've been most appreciative of, is that learning and finding the patience to work through rather than like to storm and just say, okay, it needs to be finished. Because unfortunately, if you don't give something this technical the space to be understood, it's going to lose itself, it's going to lose you, and then you're just going to end up with a mess. So I'm happy that there's been a steady movement towards a positive, rather than just saying, oh, we've got a thing, and then patting ourselves on the back and only coming out with a cacophonous mess. Cacophony is such a good word, isn't it? I should put it into one of the characters' mouths.
Tell me